Now I will talk about chess. Chess is an abstract strategic board game and a sport designed for two players. It is one of the most common and complex games existing in human culture. Estimates of the number of legal states in chess range from 2 to the power of 43 to 2 to the power 120. The game is accepted worldwide as both a hobby and a competitive sport. A person who plays chess professionally is called a chess player. Victory in the game is achieved when one of the kings is threatened in chess, but by one of the opponent's pieces cannot eat the threatening piece, lock the threat with another piece, or escape from the threat to a square where it will not be threatened. Now I will talk about basic concepts in chess. The chessboard is divided into 64 squares with 8 rows numbered from 1 to 8. So the rows we will relate only to the numbers that are in the right side of the board. So the rows are row number 1, row number 2, row number 3, row number 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And 8 columns marked with the squares marked with the letters A to H. So we also will relate only to the letters that are here. So the column A is this. This is column B, column C, column D, column E, column F, column G, and column H. So the squares are painted black and white alternately, or in general a light color and a dark color. Now I will talk about the arrangement of the tools. We should place the tools on the board in a row closest to each player from outside, in a row closest to to each player, so the row that is closest, the row that is closest to me is of course row number 1, and we should place the tools from outside to inside. First of all, we will place 2 hooks on the outermost squares. That is the outermost squares, and those are the 2 hooks, and we should place them on the outermost squares like this. Then 2 knights, those are the knights, we should place them here. Then 2 bishops, those are the bishops, should place them here. And in the 2 central squares remaining in the row, we should place the queen in column 4. So this is the queen, we should place the queen in column 4. This is column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. When the sign is queen in her color, a white queen in a white square, and a black queen, this black queen we should place in the black square. And in the column number 5 we should place the king. This is the king, and we should place him in the column number 5. Okay? In the second row on each side, the second row for the white, this is the second row, and the second row for the black is row number 7. We should place the pawns for the entire width of the row on all 8 squares. Okay, this is the pawn, and we should place the pawns on all the width of the row number 2. Okay. Of course, we should do the same process, the same thing for the black side, exactly the same thing. I will not repeat it. And now I will talk about the characteristics of the tools. The first tool that we will talk about is the king. This is the king. The king is the most important tool on the board. It can move in any direction, straight or diagonal, one square in each direction. Okay, so the king can move here or here, 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 and here, here, and here. So in total, in this position, the king has 8 squares to move in, 8 possibilities to move. Okay. Usually the king can move only one square, but there is one exception. The exception is castling. When you do the castling is something that you do in order to protect the king. When you do short castling, the king moves 2 squares from here to here. That is the short castling. And you can also do the long castling, and in that situation the king moves 2 squares. This is the long castling. In order to protect the king, you can do the castling, long castling or short castling, and in that situation the king moves 2 squares. Okay. When the king is in a chess position, the chess position that is a position the king is threatened. The opponent's tool can eat the king. That is the position of chess. So in a chess position, it is a position where the opponent can eat the king in the next turn. So the threatened player must change this position by moving the king from the threat, or blocking the attack. Yes, or yes, he must block the attack line, of the threatening piece, or he can also beat the threatening piece. So that is the first rule in chess, that when your king is threatened, you must remove the threat. Okay? In order to win the game, the player must reach a position where his opponent cannot rescue his king from the threat of chess, or he cannot eat the threatening piece, or he cannot block the threat with his own piece. This state is called mat. So that is the position that you win the game. If you threaten the opponent's king in such a way that the king cannot remove the threat with any option, cannot block the threat, cannot eat the piece that is threaten the king. Yes, if you create this situation that the opponent's king cannot be rescued in any way, then you will be the winner of the game. Okay? So the first step is the check step. When you threaten to eat the opponent's king, that is you should declare chess, because you threaten the king, and the opponent must remove the threat, either by moving the king to another square that it is not threatened, or eat the piece that is threatened the king, or block the threatened. Okay? But if your opponents cannot do that one of the three options, you will win the game. It is a mate situation, and you will win the game. Okay, despite its value as the most important tool, the king's movement is relatively limited. Unlike the other tool, it is not possible to evaluate the king with points for changing tools, because the king is not a tool that can be given up. Yes, that is the rule of chess. You cannot give up on your queen. But in terms of its value, in the sense of the balance of forces and its tactical abilities in the game, it is estimated at about 2.5 points. Okay, because the king has limited range offensive abilities, because one slot in each direction, this ability is manifested mainly in advanced stages of the game when there are not many tools left on the board. Okay, and this situation is the end game. So the king is most strength is manifested in the end game. On the same scale, the rook is valued at 5 points. The rook is valued, this is the rook that is valued at 5 points. The knight valued at 3 points. And the bishop also valued at 3 points. Okay, that is the bishop. Okay, the evaluation of the king's strength is used for tactical analysis. Okay, now we finished to talk about the king. We will continue to talk about the queen. This is the queen. The queen is the most powerful tool on the board. Its advantage is in the flexibility of its movement, since it can move in any straight line or any straight column or any straight row, or it can also move diagonal. Straight diagonal, straight row, or straight column. And as many squares as it wants in the same row or diagonal. Okay, so in row number 4, you can move to any square in row number 4. Okay, and he also can move in any square in column E. That is column E. As I've already said, we relate only to the letters here and the numbers here. So that is column number E, and it can move to any square in column number E. and he also can move in any square in the main diagonal that starts here, square number edge 1, and ends in square A8. Okay, so it can move like this. Okay, it is customary to estimate the queen's value at about 9 points. Okay, now we will move to talk on the rook. That is this is the rook. The rook can only move along the columns or rows. So from this position, the rook can move in any square on column D. Yes. And he also can move to any square in row number 4. Okay. The rooks are usually more effective when they support each other and work as a pair. A special rule was assigned to the rook in the protection of the king during the castling. I have already talked about the castling. You do the castling with the king and the rook. This is the short castling. And that is the long castling. It is customary to estimate the rook at about 5 points. Okay? Now I will talk about the bishop. This is the bishop. The bishop can only move diagonally. So the bishop that is on square D4 can move only diagonally that is one diagonal. The other diagonal is the main diagonal from A1 to edge 8 can move like this. The bishop is especially effective in open situations. The bishop is the only tool that is limited to one slot color and cannot switch to other color. So in this situation, the bishop can move only to a black squares, yes? And it cannot switch the color. It can only move on the black squares. And this bishop can only move on the white squares. Okay? The two existing bishops together cover both colors of the board. So they have a lot of strength because they cover both colors of the board. So in the event that one bishop is lost, part of the control on the board is lost. It is usually estimated at about 3 points. But with the development of modern chess engines, it has been proven that its value in the relative majority of the positions is estimated at 3.25. It is subject to dispute. There is also a slight advantage to the player who has two bishops against a knight and a bishop, or against two knights. So in this situation, that the white has two bishops and the black side has bishops and knight, the white has the advantage. And also in the second situation, where the white has two bishops and the black has two knights, the white has the advantage. Okay. Now we will talk about the knight. The knight has a special movement that combines straight and diagonal movement. alternatively, its movement can be described as the letter A rotated in different directions. So you can do 2 steps down and 1 step right, or you can do two steps down and 1 steps left. You also can do 2 steps down and 1 step, 2 steps up and 1 step right, to the right side. Or you can do 2 steps up and 1 step to the left side, and also you can do two steps right and 1 step up, or 2 step right and 1 step down, or you can do 2 step to the left side and 1 step up. So that is how the knight moves. The last option is to do 2 steps left and 1 step down. So in total, in this position, the knight can move to 8 squares. Yes, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. His advantage is that tools don't block his movement and he can jump over them. The knight is especially effective in closed situations and in the execution of a fork that is a threat to several tools at the same time. So, for example, this is a fork situation because the white side is threatening to eat the rook, and he also threatens to eat the bishop. So it is called a fork because he threatens 2 tools of the opponents at the same time. Okay, and you can also think on another situation that actually in this situation the white threatens to eat, is actually threatens all the tools that on the board, all the black tools that on the board, Okay, you can eat the knight or that knight. You can eat also the queen, you can eat the bishop, you can eat the pawn, you can eat the rook, you can eat the pawn, or you can eat the rook. Okay? The knight is usually estimated at about 3 points and slightly less than the bishop. As I have already mentioned, the bishop value at 3.25 points. Okay, so it is a little bit stronger than the knight. Okay, now I will talk about the pawn. That is the pawn. The last in the hierarchy and the most limited in its movement. Also known as soldier. The pawn can only move one square at a time and only in one direction. The direction is forward. That is to say, the opposite direction to the side of the board where it starts. From the point of view of the white side, the forward direction is this direction. That direction is the forward direction. So the pawns can move only on forward direction. That move is illegal move. From this position, that move is illegal move. Okay? You cannot move backwards. That means that he actually can stack when the square in front of it occupied by another piece. So in this position, both the white and the black, both of the sides are stuck because they cannot move their pawns because there is another pawn that blocks the movement. This pawn cannot move here because it is blocked by the black pawn. Also, this pawn cannot move here because it is blocked by the black pawn, and vice versa. The black also stuck because it cannot move the pawn here because it is stuck by white pawn, and also it cannot move the black pawn here because it is stuck by the white, it is occupied by the white pawn. during the first move of the pawn, and only during this it can move 2 squares forward or 1 square according to the player's will. So when the pawn is the second row, you have the option to move 2 squares. Only from the second row we can move 2 squares. Okay, and it is for the white side, and only from the 7th row the black can move 2 squares forward. Okay. Like this, or like this, yes? The way pawn beats or eats is different from his usual way of moving. By moving 1 square diagonally only in the direction of his progress. So in this position the white can eat the black pawn like this, diagonally. Okay, and the black also can eat the white pawn like this, diagonally. Despite being a weak tool due to its limited movement, pawns have an advantage one over the other pieces, the other piece, except for the king. The pawn has an advantage over the other pieces if it reaches the last row of the board. It becomes any other piece except for the king of the other color according to the player's choice. Okay, so in the case that the pawn reaches to the 8th row, it can be replaced by queen or by rook or by knight or by bishop. The same rule applies to the black side. When the pawn reaches to the 1st row, it can be replaced by queen, by rook, by knight or by bishop. And you can also have a situation that you will have when that pawn arrives to the 8th square, it also can be replaced by another queen. So theoretically you can have even 9 queens on the board at once. It is theoretically, not in the reality. You will never achieve to this situation, but theoretically you can have 9 queens on the board, because you will replace all the 8 pawns of the white to queen, and in addition to the queen that is already on the board, in total theoretically you can have 9 queen on the board at the same time. 9 queen on the board at the same time. 9 queens on the board at the same time. This situation is called crowning. When you replace your pawn to another tool, for example queen, that situation is called crowning. It is customary to estimate the pawn in 1 point. Okay? A special move of the pawn is en passant. En passant is a special method of capturing in chess that occurs when a pawn captures a horizontally adjacent opponent pawn that has just made an initial 2 square advance. The capturing pawn moves to the square that the opponent pawn passed over, as if the opponent pawn had advanced only 1 square. So when the white side advanced his pawn 2 squares, then the black side can eat that pawn like this. This is the en passant rule. Or when the white side advances his pawn 2 squares forward, then the black side can take that pawn like this. The same rule is for the black. When the black advances his pawn 2 squares forward, then the white can take the black pawn like this. Okay? The rule ensures that a pawn cannot use its 2 square move to safely skip past an opponent pawn. Okay? Thank you very much.